Do you believe is the BMI an accurate measurement of body fat? How's your nutrition and exercise working for you? Do you have a personalized nutrition and lifestyle assessment? I know many of us are struggling and have challenges in this area. So I interviewed Dr. Angela Tran, one of the transformational obesity doctor and also leading the MidFit weight loss clinic in Denver. She recognized that obesity was often the root cause of many chronic medical conditions. And she also has a greater understanding of the medical complexities often as serve as a barriers of weight loss. So let's jump onto the interview so you will get a straightforward answer and solutions. How they a person individual will start losing weight. For sure, some people know that they started with the BMI when they become their 25 or 30 BMI. Actually, 25, they have to lose weight, right? Which is you can just check that if you search in Google your BMI score. Can you make that straightforward to all our listeners so they can have fully understand what's when they start to lose weight?
The reason why I went into weight loss medicine is to educate and clear up the confusion that all of our listeners have out there. The body mass index is a tool honestly created for regular doctors who don't exactly have all of the training in
Mhm.
order to identify those who are overweight and obese. Okay, and so in layman's terms, it's really just a score to tell how healthy you are
Mhm.
based on your height and weight.
Okay.
However,
Correct.
there is such a flaw in the body mass index or BMI tool
Mhm.
that unfortunately doctors are using it loosely and
Yeah.
incorrectly. And ultimately, what I found is this that we are essentially labeling
Mhm.
people,
Yeah.
and I'm not exactly sure if that's really the right approach, is because many of the patients come to me and say, Dr. Tran, my doctor just told me my BMI is, in the obese category. I'm finally obese. And you can imagine
That's right.
having that label
Correct.
makes you so sad and so defeated. And I
Yes.
say, let's just walk away from this inaccurate score anyways. It doesn't take into account, how much you exercise, your
Right.
muscle mass. It really is just total weight and in total height.
Yeah.
So I said, let's go back to the basics of your choices in your healthy lifestyle.
Mhm.
And regardless of the label, let's work on those choices. And so I actually don't use body mass index anymore. And we talk about truly what people are coming to me is to make the right decision for their body type to be healthy.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I'm glad you answered that straightforward because that's a confusion to most people. Like,
Mhm.
oh no, my score is like that's one of the basis like policy, right? Is the exercise is the best activity to lose weight? Because some people are telling me they're gaining weight instead of losing weight, which is so frustrating, right? So can you address all of that, Dr. Chan?
Yes, yes. No, I actually had a conversation with a patient this morning for that very reason. Now, she's a typical person that comes to me. She's in her 40s. She actually works out regularly. She owns a Peloton. We live in here in Colorado, so she's hiking on the weekends and she stays very active. But she said the exact same question.
Yes.
Why am I gaining weight? And
Right.
so I said, well, the playing field has changed
Yes.
now that you're in your 40s, you've had kids, exercise, while is helpful, your body composition is not the same
Mhm.
as it was back in your 20s. And so I told her the reality is number one, nutrition gets the weight off.
Yes.
Number two,
Yeah.
exercise keeps it off.
Correct.
Okay. And
Yeah.
what we had to do is I had to basically say, with our programs, it's all about redefining the body composition. And we have to start with input, nutrition and mechanics. And that's why I went into, specialty training so that I could really understand the mechanics underneath, from hormone levels, having children, past injuries, taking medications, all of this plays a role
Yes.
before you even think about getting results through exercise.
Yeah, I'm glad, yeah, you addressed that, follow up with that, because as we can see nowadays, we are people are getting sicker and sicker, increasing obesity, increasing all these degenerative diseases, right? So even child are like becoming obese. How
Mhm.
it family in how we can address this, because I know for me number one reason is how we can identify the root cause of all that, because they're getting obese, right?
Yeah,
Mm,
and I can relate to that. I do have a 6-year-old daughter.
mm,
And for those of you who have children in that, ages from like 3 to about 7, they listen, they're observers, and they remember everything. And unfortunately, my daughter, who is again only 6, does understand what the word diet means, the difference between, skinny versus overweight. And, I mean, I can only protect her from the world so far. And when my patients who are also parents ask me that very question, how do I keep my children from falling to the lines of struggling with obesity? Number one, you have to model the way. Okay. So it really is just what are the choices that you are making?
mhm.
And you actually cannot expect your children to make the right choices if you yourself aren't making those.
Yes.
So, and back to kind of the original question, it starts with nutrition. Going back to again the basics of really preparing food, that's something that I think needs to be in the forefront.
Mhm.
And then number two, this is very important. It's all about physical activity. You
Yeah.
know, getting getting my daughter Haley to go outside. She is in virtual school, so she's on her iPad for her classes, and as soon as we have a break, it's like, okay, time to go outside, or let's go play. Anything to get her body moving. And then the number third and most important lesson that I give to my parents: no restriction. Okay. And what I mean by that is that when you start taking away, no, you can't have that, or you can't have this, what
Mhm.
happens is that this child just starts to almost become very resistant.
Correct.
And I know that it's not easy, and you certainly don't want your children to always choose, candy and chips and, unhealthy foods. I always give Haley a choice.
Oh,
So I say, okay, after you've eaten, this, your dinner that I prepared for you, then you can have one dessert. So it's all about making options, and you're trying to teach them to make the right choice themselves. But
mhm.
if you're constantly saying no, 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 they're
Yes.
really just going to continue to resist, and eventually you're going to give in, and then they don't have their own self-control. So that's probably the most important lesson that I have for parents.
Yeah, that's so critical, because we still have give them the power to choose for themselves, not like just order. A lot of people, we need to address this, because they have a lot of question of being frustrated to lose weight in the middle section.
Yes.
What's your best advice to can address?
Yes, yes. I know, what happens is that when you, again, unfortunately, getting older, I am in my 40s, so I do, have relationships to, our patients when it comes to that struggle. And when you accumulate body fat around that belly area, that really is a sign that there's a lot of stress going on. That release of this very special hormone called cortisol does exactly the opposite of what we want it to do. It
Yeah,
causes us to store body fat and lose muscle.
yeah,
And so again, when our patients, join a typical program, we do what we call a lifestyle and nutrition assessment. So not only are we really figuring out, okay, what are you eating and what you're exercising, but the key is lifestyle. How are you living your life? Are you going to bed at a proper time? Are you waking up rested versus tired? How much stress do you really have, as far as like family, work balance, and things, all of that nature plays a role
Yes.
on top of, again, the mechanics. Again, as a medical doctor, we also look at a metabolic profile. So we'll really look at lab work.
Mhm.
We'll look at different hormone levels and different, what I call medical barriers
Yes.
to weight loss.
Yes.
And just like I kind of call myself the mechanic for the body. Again, you can be the safest driver out there, but until you fix smoke coming out of your car, you're not going to go anywhere. And
That's
so that's why it's so beneficial to come to a weight loss doctor like myself when
mhm.
it comes to addressing, again, the true lifestyle, how you're living your life, but also your body mechanics
Yes.
before that diet and exercise will even work.
Especially nowadays, we are all virtual. So that's why
Yes,
everybody asks where they go, where they do it. They're sitting down most of the time, like
yes,
even kids. So they need to have like a schedule for them, like that.
yes.
Mostly they have just laptop they can carry and put it on the table, right? They'll
Mhm,
standing.
mhm.
It's still critical to have that movement, not like 8 hours straight sitting down in the chair, right?
Yes, and we're surrounded by technology. I do have, an Apple Watch, and I also use like my Fitbit. There's so much out there that my watch tells me when I need to stand up, and my Fitbit tells me how many steps I've taken or how many steps I haven't taken. I think we need to just schedule it in
Mhm.
along with all of the work meetings that people have. It's all about just prioritizing and really sticking to a schedule. You'd be amazed at if you did things throughout the day would actually be superior than to just work a sedentary job and then try to work out 1 or 2 hours on the weekends. Just that regular movement during the daytime is just
Yeah.
so much more beneficial.
What is the very basic process or protocol that someone wants to lose weight without very strict of protocol and programs?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that because we're early in the year. Everybody wants to make,
Right.
new changes, new year resolutions, things like that. People don't understand that weight loss actually follows a sequence. And I've uncovered that sequence in what I call the triangle of health.
Mhm.
Okay, just imagine a triangle where the first left corner is the mindset, the
Yes.
top of the triangle is mechanics,
Yeah.
and then the bottom right hand of the triangle is movement. Okay, so you must encompass all three. Mindset, mechanics includes nutrition and just your body chemistry, and then movement. All three must come into play
Oh,
when it comes to losing weight. Now, here is the trick. You must follow in priority order. You have to start with the mindset first,
yes.
then you move on to the mechanics,
Yeah.
then you move on to movement. It's interesting how earlier in your questions, people have been saying, I try to exercise, why am I gaining weight?
Because
That's the last part of that triangle. People are trying to do it backwards, and when someone enters my program, we're almost in a reverse engineering process where no, 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 there's actually a sequence of priority. And when they fix their mindset, I'm telling you, the diet and exercise becomes so much easier.
yes, that's right. And think about it, like that's why we have in the brain because our brain is the one telling us first what to do before either to function or before we do action, right? So
Yes.
I know a lot of people what they're doing is try and error to do this if it works.
Hmm.
The number one thing they're not addressing is what's the root cause, and that
Correct.
in the mind is the very important.
Exactly.
Last question will be about your book. I'm so intrigued when I have that because your book is saying like fat girl funeral. And now I'm get the idea because it's a barging tooth, which is that keep our overweight and building weight, right? And that lose habits for life. So tell us more about it. Sure.
Yes, yes. And this goes back to, addressing the mindset. And believe me, really, thought this through as far as titling my book. And I was nervous obviously, but what I'm referring to is that fat girl funeral means eliminating that negative self inner critic that keeps us from getting to where we want to be. And I had to be very blunt and frank because we're always defending that negative voice.
Correct.
And so I had to say something out loud, is because, the inspiration behind that is that I often have patients who tell me, gosh, I've been, you know
Mhm.
gaining and losing the same 40, 50 pounds year after year. What gives? And I say, well, when you look at yourself in the mirror,
Mhm.
what do you see? And this patient said, a fat girl. And I said, girl, you need a fat girl funeral. It just kind of came out to me. And I just like, wow, it's because, again, we can all relate. We look in the mirror and we automatically, instead of saying something positive, it's so natural for us to say, oh, this dress doesn't look right. Or gosh, my belly looks a little, poochy today. And again, it's just, unfortunately, we've trained ourselves that negative became normal. And so I talk in my book about that's the importance of why mindset is truly the very first step that you need to correct.
Yeah.
Because I promise you, diet and exercise really becomes easy, but the work does begin when it comes to mindset.
I know some people nowadays who are so virtual, a lot of people taking photos, and then when I have it like all together, and then people are really afraid, just want their face. I said, how come? We want no, because they're afraid to show the whole body. So anyway, is there anything would you like to add that is so important that all the viewers have to know?
Yeah, I want our listeners to know to be kind to yourself.
Correct.
That really is the first step, because obviously, it's a Monday. Everybody's like, okay, I'm going to cut sugar. I'm no longer going to eat gluten, and I'm going to cut out alcohol and soda. And while that is admirable, it
Mhm.
goes back to this restrictiveness, almost punishment game,
Right.
until you no longer can last. And the reality is that if you be kind to yourself, realize that it's not a perfect process,
Mhm.
but when you start to make these little choices that add up,
Yeah.
believe it or not, you will go so much further by
Yeah.
following that. So truly my job, as a weight loss doctor, is to just teach women, and of course men as well, to
Yes.
truly be kind. But at the same time, it's all about making healthy choices, because you deserve to have a healthy life and to enjoy, you know, time with your family, have all the energy in the world to really accomplish what you were meant to accomplish. But it really starts with just really, again, being kind to yourself, so that you know that you can, and none of this, no more punishment game
Yes.
necessary.
Yeah, it's very true. This is the one where like forget to being kind you're to yourself, because we are so bombarded with superficial or outside world, right? And then
Yes.
we should be starting be grounded and like really what's best for us, right? In order to have that healthy lifestyle.